You think you're losing your mind. The exhaustion that no amount of sleep can cure. The sudden sensitivity to noise, to crowds, to energy. The inexplicable physical symptoms that doctors cannot diagnose. The feeling that you no longer fit into your own life, like you have outgrown a skin you cannot shed. The moments when time seems to stop or speed up inexplicably. The strange dreams that feel more real than waking life. The overwhelming emotions that surface without warning. The deep knowing that something fundamental is changing inside you, even though you cannot name what it is or explain it to anyone who asks. Let me tell you something that will either bring you immense relief or make you question everything you thought you knew about reality. You are not losing your mind. You are not having a breakdown. You are not broken or flawed or failing at life. What you are experiencing are the symptoms of ascension. Your consciousness is expanding. Your frequency is shifting. Your entire being is undergoing a transformation so profound that your physical body, your emotional system, and your mental structures are struggling to keep up. You're becoming someone new, and the old you is dying. And yes, that process feels uncomfortable. Yes, it feels disorienting. Yes, it sometimes feels like you are falling apart. But you are not falling apart. You are breaking open. How many times have you tried to explain this to someone only to be met with blank stares or well-meaning suggestions to see a therapist, take a vacation, or simply try harder to be normal? How many times have you Googled your symptoms at 3 in the morning, desperate for answers, for validation, for any sign that you are not alone in this experience? How many times have you felt the profound isolation of going through something invisible, something that leaves no external evidence but tears, your inner world apart, and rebuilds it into something you do not yet recognize? You are exhausted, not just from life, but from pretending that you do not notice the energy in rooms, pretending that you cannot feel what others are feeling, pretending that you still care about things that once seemed important but now feel hollow and meaningless, pretending that you are still the person everyone expects you to be when that person is becoming more of a stranger to you every day. You are tired of explaining yourself, justifying your choices, defending your need for solitude, for silence, for time to simply be without doing, achieving, or producing anything. And beneath the exhaustion is something else, a restlessness, a sense that you are on the edge of understanding something crucial, something that will make sense of all this confusion, all this discomfort, all this inexplicable change. You feel like you are waiting for something, though you have no idea what. You feel like you are being prepared for something, though you cannot imagine what it might be. You feel like your soul is trying to tell you something urgent, something important, but the message keeps getting lost in the noise of daily life and the limitations of language. This is where Joshua David Stone's teaching becomes not just relevant but essential. Stone understood that ascension is not an abstract spiritual concept. It is a biological, psychological, emotional, and energetic process that happens in real time, in real bodies, to real people living ordinary lives. He knew that the shift in consciousness humanity is undergoing would manifest as physical symptoms, as emotional upheaval, as mental confusion, as spiritual crisis. And he knew that without a framework for understanding what was happening, people would think they were sick, crazy, or failing, when in fact, they were evolving. Stone taught that as your consciousness expands, as you begin to vibrate at higher frequencies, your entire system must recalibrate. Your physical body, which has been operating at a certain density for your entire life, suddenly needs to integrate more light, more energy, more information than it was designed to hold. This causes symptoms, fatigue, because your body is working overtime to integrate new frequencies. Strange aches and pains that move around your body, particularly in the spine, because your nervous system is literally rewiring itself to handle more consciousness. Digestive issues because your solar plexus, the seat of your personal power, is clearing old patterns of giving your power away. Heart palpitations or pressure in your chest because your heart chakra is expanding, learning to love at a frequency that is bigger than you have ever accessed before. Your emotional body also goes through massive shifts during ascension. Old wounds that you thought you had healed suddenly resurface, demanding your attention. Emotions you have been suppressing for years erupt without warning. You might find yourself crying over things that seem trivial or feeling rage at injustices you used to overlook. This is not regression. This is clearing. Your emotional body is releasing everything that is not aligned with the higher frequency you are moving into. Every tear, every moment of anger, every wave of grief is purging density, making space for more light, more love, more of your authentic self to emerge. Mentally, you might experience what feels like cognitive decline, forgetting words, losing track of time, having difficulty concentrating on tasks that once were easy. Your linear, logical mind is giving way to a more intuitive, multi-dimensional way of perceiving reality. You are learning to think with your heart, to know through your body, to trust information that does not come through traditional cognitive channels. This transition feels confusing because you have been trained your entire life to value mental clarity, to trust only what you can think through logically. But Ascension requires a different kind of intelligence, one that is holistic, embodied, and connected to the wisdom of your higher self. And spiritually, you are being invited into direct experience of the divine rather than second-hand belief. The old structures of religion and spirituality might suddenly feel empty or even oppressive. Teachers you once revered might now seem limited. Practices that used to bring you peace might now feel hollow. This is not because there's anything wrong with those structures, teachers, or practices. It is because you are outgrowing them. You are being called to develop your own direct relationship with Source, to trust your own inner knowing over any external authority. This is terrifying and liberating in equal measure. If any of this resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in these symptoms, if you have been feeling lost and confused and wondering what is wrong with you, then like this video, leave a comment describing which symptoms you are experiencing, and subscribe so we can continue exploring this journey together. Because what I am about to share with you is not just information, it is validation. It is the story of someone who went through exactly what you are going through and discovered that these symptoms were not signs of something wrong, but signs of something profoundly right. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to understand about the true nature of consciousness transformation. Rafael stood in his kitchen in a small apartment in Mendoza, Argentina, staring at the coffee cup in his hand as if he had never seen one before. He had meant to make coffee 10 minutes ago. Or was it 20? Time had been doing strange things lately, stretching and compressing in ways that made no logical sense. He set the cup down and pressed his palms against the counter, grounding himself in something solid, something real. He was 41 years old, a high school mathematics teacher who had always prided himself on his rationality, his logic, his ability to find clear answers to complex problems. But for the past 8 months, nothing about his life had been making sense. It had started with the exhaustion, a bone-deep tiredness that sleep did not touch. He would lie in bed for 9 hours and wake feeling like he had not slept at all. His doctor had run tests. Everything came back normal. His therapist suggested depression, but Rafael knew it was not depression. He had experienced depression in his 20s. This was different. This was not numbness or darkness. This was something else entirely. Then came the sensitivity. Suddenly, the staff room at school felt unbearably loud. Conversations that used to wash over him now felt like physical assault. He started eating lunch alone in his classroom, needing the silence, the solitude. Bright lights gave him headaches. Certain foods that he had always enjoyed now made him nauseous. He found himself craving simple things, vegetables, water, time alone in nature. His friends noticed his withdrawal. His sister worried. But Rafael could not explain what was happening to him in a way that made sense. The physical symptoms were bizarre and unpredictable. His back would ache for days, particularly between his shoulder blades, then suddenly stop. His heart would race for no apparent reason, filling him with anxiety, then just as suddenly return to normal. He felt pressure in his head, especially at the crown, like something was trying to push through. He had gone to 3 different doctors. All of them had found nothing wrong. One had suggested it was stress. Another had recommended medication for anxiety. Raphael had not filled the prescription. He knew, somehow, that medication would not help what was happening to him. But the most unsettling part was what was happening to his mind. Raphael, who had built his entire identity on mental clarity and logical thinking, found himself unable to concentrate. He would be teaching a class and suddenly lose his train of thought completely. He would be grading papers and realize he had been staring at the same page for 10 minutes, his mind completely blank. He started having strange experiences where time would seem to stop. He would look at a tree and suddenly be unable to distinguish where the tree ended, and he began. He would be washing dishes and have moments of such profound presence that he felt like he was experiencing existence for the first time. These moments terrified him because they made him question his sanity. And yet, they also felt strangely sacred, like he was touching something true beneath the surface of ordinary reality. One Saturday afternoon, unable to stand his own confusion any longer, Raphael walked to a used bookstore in his neighborhood. He had no idea what he was looking for, just a sense that he needed something, some answer, some explanation for what was happening to him. He found himself in the spirituality section, running his fingers along spines of books about meditation, consciousness, awakening. And then his hand stopped on a book with a worn blue cover, The Complete Ascension Manual by Joshua David Stone. Raphael pulled it from the shelf and opened to a random page. The chapter title was Physical Symptoms of Ascension. He began reading, standing in the aisle, and felt tears streaming down his face before he had finished the first paragraph. Stone was describing exactly what Raphael was experiencing: the fatigue, the sensitivity, the mysterious physical symptoms, the mental fog, the moments of transcendent awareness. Stone explained that these were not signs of illness, but signs of consciousness expansion, of the body and mind struggling to integrate higher frequencies of light and information. Raphael bought the book and spent the rest of the weekend reading it cover to cover. For the first time in 8 months, he felt relief. He was not going crazy. He was not sick. He was going through what Stone called Ascension symptoms, the physical and psychological manifestations of consciousness evolution. His entire system was upgrading, like a computer installing new software, and the process was uncomfortable because the old programming was being overwritten. Stone explained that during Ascension, the light body begins to merge with the physical body. The chakras expand and clear old energetic patterns. The nervous system rewires to handle more consciousness. The DNA activates dormant codes. The pineal gland awakens. The heart opens to frequencies of unconditional love. All of this happens on subtle energy levels first, then manifests in the physical realm as symptoms that often mimic illness, but are actually evidence of evolution. Raphael began to pay attention differently to what was happening in his body. When his back ached, instead of seeing it as a problem to fix, he understood it as his body adjusting to hold more light. When he felt exhausted, instead of fighting it, he rested, recognizing that his system needed time to integrate the changes happening at cellular and energetic levels. When he experienced mental fog, instead of judging himself as incompetent, he understood that his linear mind was making space for intuitive, multidimensional awareness. And something remarkable happened. As soon as he stopped resisting the symptoms, as soon as he stopped thinking something was wrong with him, the symptoms began to shift. They did not disappear, but they became more manageable, less frightening. He started having dreams that felt like transmissions of information, waking with insights he could not have arrived at through logical thought. He started noticing synchronicities everywhere, evidence that life was far more interconnected and meaningful than his rational mind had been willing to accept. His teaching began to change. He found himself moving away from pure lecture and toward a more interactive, intuitive style. Students who had struggled with math suddenly started understanding concepts when Raphael explained them from this new place of expanded awareness. Other teachers noticed something different about him, something peaceful and present that had not been there before. His principal commented that his classroom had become the calmest, most focused learning environment in the school, but not everyone understood. His sister came to visit one evening bringing empanadas and concern. "Raphael, you are different," she said, studying his face across the dinner table. "Are you sure you are okay? Maybe you should see a specialist, get a second opinion about these symptoms." Raphael smiled gently. "I am more than okay, Hermana. I know it looks like something is wrong, but something is actually very right. I am changing. My consciousness is expanding. I know that sounds strange, but it is the truth. And the symptoms are just my body catching up to where my awareness is going." His sister looked skeptical, but also, he thought, a little wistful. "I wish I understood what you mean. Sometimes I feel like there must be more to life than what we can see and measure, but I do not know how to access it." "You are already accessing it," Raphael said. "Every time you have a feeling you cannot explain, every time you know something without knowing how you know it, every time you feel connected to something larger than yourself, that is your consciousness trying to expand. Most people just push those experiences away because they do not fit into the rational worldview we have been taught. But if you pay attention to them, if you honor them, they will lead you somewhere beautiful." Over the following months, Raphael continued his journey of conscious evolution. He started meditating daily, not because he thought he should, but because sitting in silence had become his favorite part of the day. He started eating more intuitively, letting his body tell him what it needed rather than following dietary rules or habits. He started spending more time in nature, hiking in the foothills of the Andes on weekends, feeling the energy of the mountains teaching him about stability, strength, and timeless presence. The symptoms continued, but they evolved. The exhaustion gave way to periods of incredible energy. The sensitivity became a gift, allowing him to feel what students needed before they asked for help, to sense when a colleague was struggling and needed support. The mental fog transformed into moments of stunning clarity where he could see patterns and connections he had never noticed before. The strange physical sensations became familiar signposts, letting him know when he was integrating a new frequency or clearing an old pattern. One afternoon, teaching a geometry class, Raphael had an experience that changed everything. He was drawing a triangle on the board, explaining the Pythagorean theorem, when suddenly he saw not just the mathematical relationships, but the sacred geometry behind all of existence. He saw how these simple shapes were the building blocks of reality, how consciousness used geometry to create form, how the same patterns that governed triangles governed atoms and galaxies and everything in between. For a moment that lasted both an instant and an eternity, he understood the fundamental unity of all things, the intelligence that wove through every particle of existence. He stood there, chalk in hand, tears streaming down his face while his students watched in confusion and concern. Finally, he turned to them and said, "Do you understand what we are really studying here? We are studying the mind of God. Mathematics is not just numbers and formulas. It is the language the universe uses to speak itself into being. And when you understand this language, you are understanding the creative force that lives in everything, including you." The classroom was silent. Then one student, a quiet girl who rarely spoke, raised her hand and said, "Professor, I think I understand what you mean. Sometimes when I am doing math, I feel like I am touching something sacred. I thought that was weird, so I never told anyone. But it is real, is it not? There is something holy about understanding how things work." Raphael nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude that this young person had the courage to name what he himself had only just been able to articulate. "Yes," he whispered, "it is real. It is holy, and you are not weird for feeling that. You are awake." After class, 3 more students approached him, each sharing their own experiences of sensing something beyond the material world, feeling energies, having intuitions, noticing synchronicities. They had been afraid to speak of these things, worried they would be mocked or misunderstood. But Raphael's willingness to be vulnerable, to share his own journey of consciousness expansion, had given them permission to honor their own. That evening, Raphael sat on his small balcony, watching the sunset paint the Andes in shades of rose and gold, and understood what stone had been trying to teach. Ascension was not about escaping the human experience. It was about being so fully human, so completely present in this body, on this earth, that you became a bridge between heaven and earth, between consciousness and form, between the infinite and the particular. The symptoms were not obstacles to overcome, but invitations to evolve. Signs that your system was expanding to hold more light, more love, more of your true nature. If Raphael's story resonates with you, if you recognize your own symptoms in his journey, if you have been struggling to understand what is happening to you, then like this video, share in the comments what symptoms you are experiencing, and subscribe so we can continue exploring this path of conscious evolution together. Because the truth Stone taught, the truth Raphael embodied, the truth that is available to all of us, is this: your symptoms are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that everything is finally becoming right. They are proof that your consciousness is expanding, that your frequency is rising, that you are becoming who you were always meant to be. The exhaustion is your body integrating more light than it has ever held before. The sensitivity is your awareness expanding to include energetic and emotional dimensions you previously could not perceive. The mental fog is your linear mind, making space for intuitive, multidimensional knowing. The physical symptoms are your body's way of clearing density and raising its frequency to match your evolving consciousness. The emotional upheaval is old patterns releasing their hold on you, making space for authentic feeling and expression. The sense of not fitting into your old life is accurate because you are literally outgrowing it, becoming too big for the containers that once held you. This is not easy. No one said evolution was comfortable, but it is necessary. It is beautiful. It is sacred, and it is happening whether you understand it or not, whether you resist it or surrender to it, whether you judge it or honor it. Your only choice is how you meet it. With fear and resistance trying to force yourself back into a frequency you have outgrown, or with trust and curiosity, allowing yourself to be transformed into the expanded version of yourself that is trying to emerge. Raphael chose trust. He chose surrender. He chose to see his symptoms as sacred signs rather than problems to fix. And in making that choice, he discovered that ascension was not something happening to him, but something he was actively participating in, co-creating with the universe through his willingness to evolve, to expand, to become the bridge between human and divine that he had always been meant to be. You are that bridge too, and your symptoms, uncomfortable as they are simply the growing pains of consciousness expanding beyond its previous limitations. Honor them. Rest when you need to rest. Cry when you need to cry. Retreat when you need solitude. Trust the process. Trust your body's wisdom. Trust that you are exactly where you need to be, experiencing exactly what you need to experience, on your way to becoming exactly who you came here to be. The ascension is not coming. The ascension is here. And you, with all your confusing symptoms and uncomfortable changes and inexplicable experiences, are living proof that consciousness evolution is not just possible, but inevitable. Welcome to the transformation. Welcome to your own becoming. Welcome home to the expanded version of yourself that has been waiting for you to finally arrive.